thank you. You're done. However, thank you very much, Rotarians, for inviting me here to talk a little bit about myself. And the other day at the board meeting, there was an extensive discussion about the length of speeches and things. And it occurred to me that I should keep this relatively short. So here it is. Born in the Netherlands, worked in the compressed gas industry for 46 years, retired, joined Rotary. Thank you very much.
Not getting here.
Seriously though, by the time I'm done, you'll wish that perfect. We're going high tech there. We're going to be able to advance the slides from this podium. I was born in Holland and Netherlands during the Second World War. While the country is commonly referred to as Holland, it is actually the Netherlands, or in Dutch, it's Nederland. Everybody say that quietly to themselves. You need to know that sort of stuff. Holland is a province of the Netherlands, much like Alberta is of Canada. My birthplace is a small community in the north part of Holland called Den Helder, and it's in the province of Holland. So while I was on a Mediterranean cruise with my wife a few years ago, the plane that we were on, KLM, stopped at Amsterdam and said, well, as long as we're in Amsterdam, we might as well hang in there for a few days. And it'd be the first time that I've been back to Holland since 1952, so it was kind of a momentous occasion. And on our way there, we elected to go to Den Helder. And lo and behold, I found the house that was my birthplace. I didn't think it would still be standing. And more importantly, why should it still be standing when you consider I was born during the war and it was the one house probably that didn't get hit. While living there with my brother and my parents, we spent a lot of time going to the beach, which was in our backyard for the most part, and we'd go shelling. Now, the shelling that I'm talking about is not the traditional shelling that you're thinking of, seashells. My brother and I would go down there and pick up munitions. One time I brought about a 12-inch shell home and my brother asked me to carry it because he knew that we'd be in trouble as soon as we got in the door. My mother nearly fainted when she saw the shell. And of course we had to get the local bomb squad or whatever to get rid of the thing. The other thing that was interesting about where we lived close to an airfield, and as such, the Germans had built bunkers. And I was surprised that one or two of those bunkers were still there when I was there a few years ago. And I guess the reason for it is that those bunkers were built with something in the order of about 6 feet of concrete on the walls. And the Dutch government decided it was too expensive to try and remove them. And you couldn't, blow them up or anything. So it was a challenge to try and deal with it, and so they just left them. I couldn't get close enough to take a picture, otherwise I'd have a picture here today. At the age of 5, we moved to the province of Friesland. The province is much like Quebec is to Canada. Different language, different flag, and different customs. And here I thought I'd be getting away from that and come to Canada, same thing. This is the Frisian flag, if anybody has ever seen it before. It sort of reminded me of Quebec's flag of fleur-de-lis. This picture of the farm in Friesland is not the picture of our farm. I couldn't find anything in our archive, so I just found something on the internet. But this is very close to the type of farm that my father had my dad at the time, there's much more money in that than there is in farming, Dad. That's why we came to Canada. No presentation from a Dutchman would be complete without a pair of wooden shoes in front of him. There's a story that goes with wooden shoes. My dad had wooden shoes most of his life in Holland. Younger kids like myself, we didn't lose bread. One day my dad, he had an issue to discuss with me, and he said, I want you to come over here. And I thought, this doesn't look very promising. I think I would just keep my distance from this guy. So I backed away, and he started coming towards me, and pretty soon we're running. Now, I'm a 6-year-old kid, and I think I can outrun a guy with wooden shoes on. And he realized it too. So one of the favorite things in Holland is that if you can't catch somebody, you just take your foot and pitch the wooden shoe at the guy. With a little bit of luck, you might nail him, Anyways, he pitched the shoe at me, and I stopped abruptly. I thought, okay, he might be luckier with the next shot. Anyways, now I know what George Bush felt like when he had the Iraqi trophy. So in 1952, we decided that farming wasn't going to cut the mustard in terms of economics, and we decided to immigrate to Canada. So Mom, Dad, brother and sister, and ourselves, we packed all our worldly possessions into a 10-foot crate, and we emigrated to Canada. This picture is the Vanderblij, which is a Holland America ship. Now, some of you may know that my wife and I are fervent cruisers. This was the first cruise ship. This is our first Holland America cruise. Yeah, we were way ahead of our time. This thing was actually a troop carrier that was owned by the Dutch government, and they converted it to a passenger ship. And I don't know if it was the first ship that Holland America acquired, but it was probably up there. Now, I have a flair for the dramatic. A seven-day voyage across the North Atlantic. It was rough. It was so rough that my sister was 3 years old at the time, and she was still in the crib. And as the boat would go one way, the crib would go across one way, the other way. Finally, Dad said, well, we can't get any sleep with that crib running back and forth, so we went out and got some rope and tied the thing to the bed post. Well, rough. So, on February 12, 1952, the Vanderblij family landed in Halifax. And as you can see, the red ensign is at the top of the picture, because at the time, that was the flag of Canada. That's the first flag that we saw. But it wasn't until, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, 65, Lester B. Pearson put in the new flag? Somewhere around there, 65 or 67. You come to Canada, gotta go to school. So, I went to a school in Port Perry in Ontario. And while this isn't the school, again, I couldn't do a picture of it, but it was a one-room school just like that one. And that school had 6 grades in it. And you can really relate to this, Randy. 6 grades, 6 rows of desks, 1 grade per row. Amazing that you could learn anything within that environment when you consider that while you're trying to do your work, the teacher's talking to the grade 5s or 6s. Upon getting into this school, I had no English skills, no language. So we have to learn the language. Now, as children go, they generally pick up language quicker than adults. So at recess, the first few days, the kids were playing football. So the kids would catch, or at least down the ball carrier, remaining standing are all running around, let him up, let him up. Jan learns his first English, let him up. We then moved to a town just on Lake Ontario, Whitby, Ontario. I worked part-time after school at a local service station where I met the manager of the local Matheson Gas Products plant in Whitby, Ontario. Matheson Gas Products is a U.S. company started in New Jersey, and they had 3 plants at the time. They expanded to 8 plants in the U.S., at which time they decided to expand into Canada. Hence, the plant in Whitby was born in 1962. And the company handles in excess of 100 different chemical compressed gases. It supplies to research facilities, universities, analytical laboratories, and the like. While at Matheson, I attended extensive night school. I became a professional night school student, learning chemical disciplines and management expertise. Management studies were completed at the Canadian Institute of Management, and after graduating from the Institute, I decided to give something back to the Institute by becoming a director on their board of directors. The positions I held was membership and education chairs. And while holding the education chair, I had a privilege of sitting on the business advisory program at the Lloydminster Lakeland College. And the interesting thing to note, this is obviously a few years ago, Larry Pollock, the CEO of the Western Canadian Bank, was the fellow that rode with me to Lloydminster. We exchanged some pleasantries, and it was kind of nice. I didn't learn a thing about finance, unfortunately, Alan, but it was interesting talking to him. Matheson was acquired by various other companies over the years, transitioning from an American company to Japanese, to British, and finally to a German ownership group. 2004, my wife and I looked at our family. Our family had decreased in size, kids had moved out. We realized that we needed to downsize, so we moved to Spruce Grove. Our daughter was attending law school, and she is now a practicing lawyer in Toronto. And while our son, he was studying computer technology and lives in Edmonton with his wife. Bev and I decided to move to Spruce Grove, as I said earlier. And ultimately, I retired from the compressed gas business in 2008. And after retirement, I thought I could play golf forever. However, I soon determined that there's more to life than playing golf. So that's when I met Dee Lewis of the Stony Plain Rotary Club, and Dee introduced me to Rotary. I didn't know much about Rotary, but after talking to Dee, I found out what Rotary was about, and I decided that I would come to a meeting at Stony Plain, and all the rest is history, and 3 years of Rotary Club at Stony Plain. Now comes the braggery part, the part we all wait for. People that stand up here and do these classification things, you have some sort of thing about talking about yourself, but this next one is really good. As you can see, I got right into Rotary pretty good in the first year, and I became Rotarian Rookie of the Year in my first year at Stony Plain. I have enjoyed various volunteer activities over the years. One of the nicer volunteer activities was the Junior Achievement. They had dinners. That was in the days when Peter Pocklington was heavily involved with Junior Achievement. And he was able to, with his connections, bring in some top-drawer speakers he had Margaret Thatcher, Shimon Peres, Gerald Ford, Barbara Bush, among others, who come to speak to these events. Junior Achievement, as I said, I volunteered, and they had me liaise with the security at these dinners. And while working with the different security agencies from different countries wasn't that exciting, I don't think. It was exciting when Shimon Peres was there and the Secret Service from Israel was there. Let me tell you, those guys had no sense of humor. More recent volunteer activities at the Alberta Games. I still do Meals on Wheels in Stony Plain, and I also volunteer at the St. Augustine's Church, August Cafe. I was talking to Bill Steinberg at the start of this meeting today, and Bill says, so what do you do when you retire? Well, the first thing you do is you take up something that you think, you know, I've always needed a wine cellar in my basement. So I finished the basement, or maybe I finished the wine cellar first and then finished the basement. I'm not sure which way it went. But one of the things I like doing is making my own wine. So I built the wine cellar. This wine cellar holds in excess of 300 bottles of wine. And needless to say, I can't afford to stock it and purchase wine, so I make my own. And I do buy some. So I built the thing, and I make wine and consume the product, and not necessarily in that order. Now we have a few other activities. Bev and I, as I said earlier, we love cruising. And so far we have visited over 21 countries that I can delete from my bucket list. I also do picture photo mounting and framing. I make wine, I've already discussed that, and of course, I participate in Rotary. And with that, I would like to thank you, each and every one of you, for making me part of your group and our worldwide family of Rotarians. Thank you very much.
The classification speeches are always interesting. Did anybody have any questions? Oh, great.
Yeah, Jen, what are you doing next week on the wine cellar? Do you speak Dutch?
Somewhat. It's interesting, when you go over there, as I did, you know, I said a few years ago, I still spoke some Dutch. My mother spoke Dutch to me, and I answered in English, and it was kind of a convoluted conversation, but nevertheless, we managed. So I go over there, and I think my sister and brother-in-law were with me, and we go into this restaurant, and I'm going to order this. Hold on, folks, I will order this in Dutch. The guy I'm talking to, the waiter, he speaks better English than I do. You know what it is about the Dutch. They learn English just like a lot of people learn French here. Yeah, English is definitely your second language.
I noticed you were born in one place in way up in northern Holland, and then you said you moved to the home farm, which was in that other state.
Yeah,
what were you doing in that first place, or what was your father doing there?
Well, my father, after the war, Germany had a significant debt owed to the Dutch, and as a result, part of the debt was repaid by allowing the Dutch to go into the Black Forest in Germany and harvest lumber, which obviously was used to rebuild a lot of the buildings in Holland, which were destroyed. So my dad was a lumber camp manager, if you will, to harvest the trees and bring it back to Holland. So that was our income at that time. And I think that's where he probably saved the money too.